we've been doing this series as we lead into camp, and we'll have full camp coverage as the Vols meet with the media today. But best seasons by a Tennessee fullback or tight end. It's tough to find the tight ends, but because before Jason Witten, Tennessee had an incredibly bad history of tight ends. So let's start with a guy that I thought was a very good player and probably could have played tailback at a lot of schools. Troy Fleming in 2003, a very good fullback and a guy that, again, could have played tailback at a number of SEC schools.
Yes, and as a matter of fact, he committed as a tailback. I don't think he wanted to play fullback, and he willingly accepted the role.
I can tell you 100% he did not.
Yeah, and I know he accepted the role. Troy Fleming was probably the best Tennessee's go-to play in the early 2000s in the rainy, and it worked. Dave, you know this. I feel like this had 100% success rate. 3rd and 2, 4th and 1, play action, throw it to the fullback in the flat. Works every single time, I felt like. And Troy Fleming was the master of executing that play. In 2003, he had over 300 yards from scrimmage. 2 touchdowns, was a very, very valuable centerpiece for Clawson, who did not have a lot of receivers to throw to that year.
Yep. Okay. Ken DeLong, 1968. Doug Dickey was the first to really use the tight end in the passing game. And Doug Dickey was innovative in so many ways. I don't think he gets enough credit. You had Austin Denny in 1966 in a new era of fashionable T formation. And then you had a guy that I really like, Chris Brown. I've been a big fan of his for a long time, just as a person.
Not the singer.
Not the singer. Chris Brown in 2007.
Yes, Chris Brown was, I thought, an undersized tight end. And he was really thrust into the role in 2007 when Brad Cotton went down, which was really, I mean, if Brad Cotton had not gone down, we're talking one of the best tight ends, too, in Tennessee history. I mean, that guy was an incredible tight end. But Chris Brown steps in, does a very good job, particularly when Eric Ainge, again, doesn't have a lot of receivers to throw to, and finishes the year with 41 catches, 282 yards, but the catches 6 touchdowns. I mean, he was always reliable in the red zone.
Bill Anderson, 1956.
Bill Anderson was,
of course, I just want to throw in there, he was the longtime color commentator for Tennessee along with John Ward. And the funniest thing that ever happened is when he had John Ward ready, it was his last season. He had announced that, and he's ready to make his national championship call. And he said, the national championship is clad in. Bill Anderson goes, Big Orange. It's like he stepped on his line for the national championship. But anyway, Bill Anderson was great.
Yes, he was. And for those who question why I combine fullbacks and tight ends together, it's because the tight end today is basically the fullback until about 1995. You agree with that, right, Dave? A primary blocker that plays a new role. Bill Anderson actually played both. He was the fullback at Tennessee, and then he was the tight end, a Pro Bowl tight end in the NFL. Buddy Cruz was a receiver around this time and listed as an end, but I would consider him the first wide receiver in Tennessee history. And Anderson had 15 carries for 172 yards and another 10 catches for 216 yards, 3 total touchdowns. Everybody talks about Johnny Majors that year, but Bill Anderson was a big threat on the 56 SEC title team.
Number 5, Sean Bryson. I could argue he should be even higher because he may be the best combination of a blocker and a runner and a pass catcher I've ever seen play at Tennessee.
Yes, Sean Bryson was. We talked about best athletes for Tennessee. I don't know how we forgot Sean Bryson last week. I mean, I feel like Sean Bryson is the number one guy you don't want to fight. Dude was strong and fast. Oh, yeah. And honestly, you're right. He looked more like a running back, but he blocked like a true fullback. And he could take out 2 guys as a blocker a lot of times. I remember him paving creating a lot of holes, particularly for Travis Henry after Jamal Lewis went down. And he's got 2 key touchdowns in 98, the run against Florida, and he caught the first touchdown in the national title game against Florida State.
There you go. Princeton Fant just last year. And really, he's the one on this list that is tight end and is fullback. He came in when Tennessee didn't have a fullback in their short yardage situations, and he was able to be a more than adequate blocker, a very versatile player. I still think he finds a place in the NFL because he'll be able to play special teams with his athletic ability. Fantastic season last year. Then we get to some pretty interesting ones. Now, I would have Sean Bryson number 1 because of his blocking ability, but your stats back up every bit of the argument to have Luke Stalker number 3, Jason Witten number 2, and then I want to save the surprise for number 1. But still, and I've told this story before, interviewed Jason Witten when he got moved from defensive end to tight end. I said, you realize that no Tennessee tight end has ever caught more than 24 passes in a season. You can double check my history on that. And he goes, I know. And I said, is it going to be hard to be a part of the offense? He goes, probably. And he was so incredibly frustrated that I think, well, I know he went home and called his family about possibly transferring that very day. And this is like the second week of preseason camp. He was a true freshman. As it turns out, he had a Hall of Fame career. And much like Bryson, he was like very good at everything, maybe not excellent at everything, like maybe not a Travis Kelce at catching balls, but he was very good at finding open spaces. He was a good blocker, wasn't a great blocker, but he was good in everything. And that to me, if you can get that out of a tight end, you may get a Travis Kelce, okay, in the way they throw the ball around nowadays. But if you can get a guy that's good at everything at tight end or fullback, those are the guys that you can win championships with. Well, you couldn't with Jason because they had absolutely terrible coaching, but those are the type of guys that I want that are good at everything at the fullback and tight end positions.
Yes, and Jason Witten, to me, I put this 2002 season up there, but that 2002 season to me is Alvin Kamara's 2016 season. I think Philip Fulmer criminally underused Jason Witten in 2002. You had all the injuries. Dante Stallworth and Kelly Washington are gone. Your go-to receiver is Leonard Scott at one point. I mean, they should have just been throwing to Jason Witten every play. I mean, I think he's one of the most criminally underused players in Tennessee football history, and it still was one of the best seasons.
Yeah, and I don't think they knew how to use him. They tried to line him up outside. I just think it was they hadn't relied much on the tight end at that point, and I don't think they were sure how to use him. Then you had Michael Rivera in 2012 at number 1. That name might surprise some people that he was number 1 on this list. Why?
The numbers just back it up. Again, Tyler Bray, Cordarrelle Patterson, Justin Hunter, Michael Rivera. That 2012 offense was not the problem for Derek Dooley's last year. It was the historically bad defense with Sal Sinceri. But Michael Rivera, I mean, the guy did catch 562 yards and 5 touchdowns, became an NFL draft pick. I mean, is he the best tight end on this list? No. Is the 2012 season the best season a Tennessee football tight end or fullback has ever had? Yeah. And he was a huge threat consistently for Tennessee that year.